Hello everyone and welcome to a double episode of Perpetual Chess. It's been a while since we've done one of these and we've got an entertaining and informative double conversation coming your way. First wanted to remind you all about a few things. We've got the affiliate deals going with various quality chess entities. Chessdojo, big discount, 40% off your first month, running for a first couple months. That's more community-based. Chessmood, also a community, but more chess education straight up based with their giant library of videos. You can try Chessmood with a free 1-week trial using the link in the description. And then upstart chess site, chess.com, also is offering a free 1-week membership if you use the link in the description, or if you want to upgrade your membership or renew your membership and you use the Perpetual link, a portion of the link goes to support the podcast and is greatly appreciated. And of course, wanted to give a shout out to our longtime sponsors, Chessable.com. Friend of the pod, Grandmaster Arthurs Nixons. I feel like he's everywhere lately. He's commentating. He recently qualified for the FIDE World Cup, which I know he's excited about, and that'll be one more player to root for when he plays in it. But I'm bearing the lead. He has a new course out on the Scandinavian, the battle-tested Scandinavian. So if you're looking for, I always feel like the Scandinavian's kind of annoying to play against. So it's a reasonable offbeatish choice against 1e4. As for this week's episode, so first up, we catch up with a longtime friend of mine, well-known and respected scholastic teacher here in the U.S. and California, Coach Jay Stallings. Jay and he talked about how his chess business has changed. He talked about chess teaching principles. He talked about new educational tools that he's using, as well as a little bit about the recent chess national tournament that happened here. Coach Jay actually recently consulted on the chess scenes in this big Hollywood blockbuster, The Accountant 2. So we ended up talking about chess and movies a bit. And then the second guest, also chess education focused, Adam Weissbarth, who's a national master. But for the purposes of this conversation, more importantly, he founded one of the biggest after-school programs in the United States many years ago. He founded it back in 2006, I think. And now they're educating thousands upon thousands of kids in the Washington, D.C. area. So he talked about the challenges of COVID and a bunch more stuff. Also his own Nationals trip report, as well as what it was like to be acquired by the Play Magnus Group and then actually went solo again. So a lot of chess education talk, chess business talk in this one, but two great guys that I think you will enjoy hearing from. As always, the timestamps of when there's multiple guests or we're jumping around in topics, they might be off by a minute or two sometimes, but the timestamps are in the descriptions and I will get you to. First up is Jay Stallings, and then be sure to stay tuned for the interview with Adam Weissbarth. Here it is. And we are here with the return guest that I have wanted to get back on the show for a long time. Super excited to make it happen. He is a well-respected scholastic teacher in Southern California. He's taught thousands upon thousands of kids chess over a 30-year span. This is his third time as a guest on the podcast, but the most recent was actually way back in 2017. We're getting old. Our guest has done everything from running chess nonprofits to teaching online classes to teaching independently at school programs to running camps, as he will be doing soon enough. I'm also a fan of the products he creates. He makes a series of workbooks, which are on my webpage under my recommended books, particularly recommended for kids. They're fun little workbooks that have both like a lesson component and a workbook component that I used to use when I was running after school programs. And he's out with a new product called Triple Check that we will discuss in due time. But first and foremost, I am excited to welcome back to the program Coach Jay Stallings. Welcome, Jay.
Wow, Ben, I didn't realize it had been that long because I'm constantly engaging with you, listening to your podcast, commenting on your different posts and sending questions for guests and all that kind of stuff. So, wow, that's a while.
Yeah, time really flies. It's crazy. And I was trying to, as I was reviewing our prior interviews, and before our first interview in 2016, it mentioned that you'd taught 25,000 kids chess, but I'm guessing that number has gone up significantly since then.
Yeah, and I think even in 2016, that might have been a lower estimate. I've extrapolated it out and looked back, and it's over 30,000, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually over 40,000. But that it's hard for me to go back now and justify spending the time to count how many students I've taught over the years. And looking back at the old recordings, we're using 8-track tape to do that. I mean, that was a long
Right,
time ago.
exactly. Yeah, I was just telling Jay about how the editing capabilities have improved in the years since he and I had our first conversation on the podcast. And just to give listeners a brief sort of primer, because I know not everyone listening will have heard our prior interviews, although shout out to the OGs who have. So Jay, again, started teaching chess in 1994. He had a corporate job, and was it like global finance or something, Jay?
Yeah, international trade. I mean, it sold computer printers to Latin America and traveled down there and trained the distributors and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then there have been various chess booms, as regular listeners will know. There's the pandemic boom, the PogChamps boom, the Queen's Gambit boom, all kind of in close succession. The Fischer boom, if you want to go way back to 1972, obviously. But Jay was part of the lesser known, but equally important at the time, the Searching for Bobby Fischer boom, right, Jay?
Oh, it was a huge boom. At the time, U.S. Chess had about 2,000 scholastic members, and after searching for Bobby Fischer, swelled to about 20,000 pretty much overnight.
That's
And so,
massive.
so
Wow.
yeah, it was a huge increase. And in my classes in 1994, the movie had come out in the fall of 93, and my classes in 1994 and into 95, I would always ask the kids if they had seen Searching for Bobby Fischer. And in the beginning, it was 100%, and then it was 95%. Nowadays, when I ask them, it's about 5%. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I recently got it out for my kids, and it actually, my kids, it's kind of depressing. They're not that into movies. They're 9 and 12, and you can really see the difference in attention spans when you compare movies to how they react to shows. But they actually enjoyed it. So, and for listeners not familiar, first of all, we should say it's based on a book by Fred Waitskin, who was the dad of a prodigy here in the US, Josh Waitskin, and then turned into a pretty successful movie. We should also stipulate that Jay didn't start because of Searching for Bobby Fischer. He started teaching because suddenly after Searching for Bobby Fischer came out, there was demand. But anyway, especially for anyone with kids, it does hold up well. It's kind of like the Karate Kid for chess, but it's actually better in a sense than Karate Kid, if I may editorialize for a minute, because from a parenting perspective, I think it really does a good job of telling the stories of the challenges that parents might grapple with when they have talented kids. Or maybe it's just I'm getting old, so I look at things through a different lens these days. Have you watched the movie like in the past 20 years, Jay?
Yeah, I'll put it on when I'm doing tasks like punching out my triple check cards and that kind of thing. But I think when I tell people what it's about, I say it's about a relationship between a father and his son, and it's told through chess. And so it really is that. You don't have to be a chess player to appreciate the movie. And so if you are a chess player and you know somebody who's not a chess player that you like to go to or watch movies with, you can certainly watch it with them, and they might even become a little bit of a chess fan by watching it.
Yeah, for sure. My wife, not a big chess player, but was enjoying the movie when we had it on. And actually, I forgot to mention in introing Jay that he actually has done some of his own movie consulting in recent years, including for The Accountant 2, which those of you watching on YouTube can see. He's got a little promotional. I don't even know what that is, Jay. He's got a little promotional thingamabob behind him. So, Jay, what is the story of how you got into the film business?
Well, yeah, into the film business. That's kind of funny. Yeah, just on the fringe. But I actually got it from U.S. Chess. So I got a call from U.S. Chess. I think it was directly from Renee Bartlett. And she said that there was a filming happening in Los Angeles, and they were looking for somebody to do some consulting for their chess scenes because they wanted them to be legit. And was I interested? And I said, well, yeah, that sounds great, because I had done a couple small, like I did a B, maybe a C movie called Knight to F4 that never made it to mass distribution. And then for this, I thought, there's all these great chess movies and scenes, and sometimes they get it so wrong, and it's so horrible when they get it wrong. I'd love to create some scenes and make it into an epic, a real epic thing. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity, and I jumped at it, and it was a really great process and a very supportive production team with The Accountant too.
Yeah, and we should say this is a movie that is in theaters right now. Ben Affleck needs no introduction. John Bernthal, who was in The Bear, fun, really good show, among other things. So you made the chess scenes, and then are you just like wash your hands of it, or are you there overseeing it when they're being recorded?
Yeah, well, actually, I made the scenes and then I read the script, and they wanted four different chess scenes. And the premise is that the uh, the woman there was a woman that had a head injury, and because of that, then she became really adept at learning things quickly. So chess was one of the sample things. In the end, of course, because we know the accountant too, what it's about, her real skill was killing people. It was like, she was an assassin, but they showed it through chess and cup stacking that she could learn things really quickly. And so they wanted four chess positions, one that was very beginner, where she was learning the game, and then one where she was getting better and feeling more confident, and then another one where she's beating the the doctor that is there at the hospital with her, and then finally one where she's just so good at it that she has to play herself and knocks the doctor's hand out of the way and plays out both sides, white and black. And so I had to come up with these positions that would justify each one of those. And so the first one is like the copycat defense. The e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes e5, knight takes e4, queen e2. And so that one is actually on the screen for quite a while. The other ones, you're just seeing bits and pieces of them, but it was nice to create those positions. I had one of them, I used Leora Ginsburg, one of my students who's now at Rice University. I used a position in which she had beaten an expert at nationals, and I thought that would be a fun way to honor her and all the years that I worked together. And I met her at the taping of a podcast with you. And gosh, what year was that, in 2017?
2017, yeah, I
Yeah,
met her and her dad as well. Yeah, that
yeah. I met them because they came and watched that and watched the podcast as we were doing it, and then they followed me out and said, "Hey, we're from LA too. Can we do lessons?" And so I taught her ever since then, and still teach her dad and mom. But in any case, I got way off the tangent on that one. Um,
I've heard worse. I've heard worse, Jay.
but in any case, I created another position that was interesting, that has an under promotion to a knight and for the mate and that kind of thing. And then finally a position where she can play it out against herself. And so, yeah, but then I had to teach the actors how to not look like beginners when they were playing
Right,
chess.
which is hard. Yeah.
It was, and it was an interesting process. At my third time doing that, because I'd done it for Knight to F4, and then also for a play about Bobby Fischer's love life, um, back in a while back. And so you don't realize just how many little nuances we do. Like when you do a capture from the right, it's different than if you do a capture from the left. In one case, if you're capturing, you're swooping over the piece to do it, and then if you're capturing, if left to right, then you're pushing it out of the way. So there's little things like that, and then pushing the clock with the piece that you use to capture, uh, castling, making it look smooth. And there was a couple things that she did them differently, and so I said, you know what, um, that's okay. That's your little twist on it. And the director was a great director, and he was really big on letting her do do her put her own little twist and style into each thing that she did. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I remember Anya Taylor-Joy of Queen's Gambit. People were generally, obviously, she was up for awards. I can't remember if she won them, but people were complimentary of her overall performance. But they also asked her about how she was able to look like a seasoned chess player when she made the moves. And she has a background in dance, and she said there's an element of choreography. If you're not if you're not an experienced OTB in particular player, in learning how to mimic it. So that's why for her, it was not as challenging as it might be for some others. And so, Jay, you've had a little bit of experience producing this Hollywood stuff, but of course, you're friends with Bruce Pandolfini, who consulted on the aforementioned Queen's Gambit and was featured in I mean, it was a character
Right.
mimicking real life in Searching for Bobby Fischer. So, when you got this gig, did you have Bruce on speed dial?
Well, what Bruce did with Queen's Gambit, I think he created 300 positions that were actually legit positions that he had extras in the background. As she walked past the scenes, they're playing the moves, having no idea what they're really doing. But he's like, okay, move the horsey guy here and move. And so they all looked like they were pros in real positions, which his what he did was War and Peace, and what I did was basically the funny pages. I mean, it was like I did this little tiny thing. His accomplishment was amazing, and I was on set for 3 days, but and training for 2 other days, and I think his was a matter of months and months, and 4 different cities or 5 different cities, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I would have called him, but I felt like he would have been advising, like I said, it
Right.
would have been Tolstoy giving advice to Gary Larson or something like that. I don't know.
And did you get a chance to see the movie yet, Jay?
I did. So Michelle, my wife, and I went to see it. We actually went to one of these 4X theaters on accident. While we were filming it, or while we're watching it, our seat is shaking with the scenes. It's like this 3D experience, but 4D. And so there's water getting sprayed on it. It was a very good movie. Very good. We liked it a lot. The chess scenes, I wasn't sure if every one of them was going to make it each position, but they did. So that was fun to see that each one of them made it into the movie, and I thought they used them very well.
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't have seen it if there weren't chess in it, but now I definitely will. And to our broader conversation about chess being portrayed in film, you go to great lengths. Bruce, as you described, went to even greater lengths. But us chess players, we mainly just want to see like the queen on her own color and the corners oriented in the right direction. We've been conditioned to have very low standards with all of the representations of chess in film.
Yeah, it's true. I made a list for when I wasn't there for the production of Knight to F4. I just told the PA, the production assistant, okay, you can't have two bishops on the white squares. You can't have the bishop outside of the pawn chain if the pawns haven't moved yet. And just different advice. And even for the editor, you can't have a conversation where two people are talking and the game bounces to the end game and then back to the opening and the end game during the course of their conversation that is taking place over 15 seconds. So
The bishop's outside the pawn chain. That's a good one.
it's these weird things like that. And then of course they'll also put 3 pawns on the F file and obviously nothing's been captured yet. And you're just like, oh my gosh.
Well, aside from consulting on these giant Hollywood movies, Jay, obviously your day job is teaching chess, and a lot has changed since we chatted. I mean, like you say, we've chatted offline over the years, but you were running a big nonprofit the last time we did an interview, and the pandemic, among other things, changed that. So, how has your chess teaching day to day evolved in the past 8 years?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, we actually shut down our schools on a Thursday, and we were supposed to run the state championship that weekend, and we actually had to shut that down. And that usually has 600 players, so all of a sudden, boom, that was huge. And we moved immediately on Monday. We started online classes on Zoom, and we were prepared for it because I had people in town to help me with the production of our state championship, and they knew how to do all the online instruction. And so we immediately were ready to do that. And then I actually, a week later, I held like a seminar online and taught coaches from across the US how to use Zoom to teach their classes. And even though I had just started it a week earlier, I had now taught like 5 classes a day for five days in a row. So I was already getting to know it. And so we did that, but the numbers just dwindled because our students out here in California, especially, they were Zooming all day long for regular school. And then after school, they didn't want to do more Zoom. And then in the fall, I wanted to go back to the schools and teach, but they didn't want to mix grades together because they were separating them, first grade in one lunch table, second grade in another, and then all that for naught if we run an after school program where we just mix them together. And so they said, no, we're not ready for you. Well, the nonprofit was going to be running out of money. So I started saying yes to all the private schools that had been asking me to coach at them for years. And so then I switched over and started coaching at the private schools, and we just slowly but surely shuttered down the nonprofit, kept the foundation going, which brings chess kits to kids in the hospitals, and I go in and I teach chess at the hospitals. And we actually brought a lot of those kits after the fires that we had out here
Oh,
in
wow.
Albany, California. We brought about 50 of those chess kits to those victims, and they were very, very grateful for that. I even had 3 of my own students that lost their houses. And
Jeez.
so in any case, now instead of teaching in 25 schools, I'm teaching in 5 schools.
Yeah.
And it is nice because I have been doing it for so long. It means that I have a bit more time in my schedule. And these schools, I'm able to focus a lot more with them and travel to nationals with them as well. So that's been fun.
Yeah, and actually, as we record this, Jay was just at Nationals about 10 days ago, and I want to hear about that. But I am curious. So, obviously, it's a big adjustment, as you say, a lesser administrative load, not to run a nonprofit of the scale that you were running. But is there any other big adjustment in terms of from running a big program like that to doing individualized after school programs, predominantly at private schools?
Well, one thing that happened was with the pandemic, of course, everybody started teaching on Zoom. And so I did pick up a lot of private lessons on Zoom and actually have a waiting list that I never get to the end of it. And so it's it is one of those things that's been nice that I can consistently teach as many private lessons a week as I want. And some weeks I don't want to teach as many, and some I'm open and ready to go and can get a bunch done. So while I am going to these schools, the private schools, it also affords me some time to get at least one lesson a day. I taught one just before we met now, and I'll teach one again tonight. So some days I'll teach 4 in a day. Most days I teach 1 to 2 on Zoom, and that's obviously a new thing that never happened before the pandemic.
Yeah, and you managed to fill. So chess teachers often are in very high demand after school, evening, weekend hours, much less so during business hours. But we're recording this midday on a weekday. So you managed to fill one of those elusive hours for that lesson.
Yeah, homeschoolers. I teach 3 different homeschoolers, and so that's nice that I'm able to teach them during the day. And then also I teach students on the East Coast, including one that lives in Princeton.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
so, and so I teach Sophia, twice a month, and she's right there in your neck of the woods,
Yeah, probably about 10 minutes from my house. So,
right?
so you went to nationals. Were you going coaching a specific team or you just had some students of interest or what brought so this was for I think I mentioned this in my interview with Alex Ostrowski, but this is so it's a big Scholastic National Championship. One thing that was different about this year's edition for international listeners is some years they have separate elementary school, junior high school, and high school nationals, but then every handful of years they do what's called a Supernationals, where it's all under one roof, just massive. This one I think was over 4,000. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah,
Um,
it's about 4,600, 4,600 played in it. It was huge, and I'll send you a photo I took from the escalator going down that shows a lot of the crowd in the concourse. And so you can share that with the audience. It's definitely a huge amount, but the cool thing about Super Nationals is that by bringing everybody together, there was a synergistic effect, and you would have grandmasters and vendors showing up that wouldn't want to show up just for the one
right.
nationals, the elementary, the junior high, or the high school. But heck, if they're all there at one time, I might as well go because I have students all ages, or there's customers of all levels and that kind of thing. So it does make it a unique opportunity. And I believe, Ben, that this might have been their last one. There's no more Super Nationals on the calendar, I don't believe. It's a huge undertaking, and US Chess, I would guess, this is just conjecture on my part, that they would always struggle to know exactly how much staffing they need for such an event and how to house them in a way that is economically feasible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they do plan these things like 4 years out. So we may not know for sure if they're done, but they're at least not, like you say, not on the calendar for the foreseeable future. So who
Right.
were you there coaching, Jay?
My team from Lawrence, and so Lawrence is a private K-6 school in the San Fernando Valley in the Los Angeles area. And so I teach there on Mondays and Fridays, and um, each day has 40 kids, the maximum signed up, 40 beginners on Monday, 40 more advanced kids on Fridays. And so we had 25 that played this year from Lawrence, and they did really well. It was a strong performance. They gained rating points on average, somewhere probably about on average at 75 points. And so, yeah, it was nice because last year we went and they weren't as prepared. And I would say we might have even lost points last year. So to see that huge turnaround was good. And there was a lot of things we learned in training them last year online and in person as well that I think helped out. I think the main thing was this new product called Triple Check that really helped them to get ready. Okay, sorry, self-promoting. But
Yeah,
yeah, so the kids did well. We had one with 6 out of 7, and a number with 5 out of 7, and that kind of thing. And the teams, we took home 3 team trophies. I mean, we're not one of those New York schools that's winning top 5 finish and all the championship sections, but also it's a different demographic that chess out here as far as the kids aren't doing chess 24/7,
the
and
weather's too nice there, I always say.
it is nice. It's definitely an impediment to learning chess. Kids are busy with surfing lessons and
Right, exactly.
whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some elements I don't do after school programs currently. As I mentioned, I have for many years in the past, and there's some elements that I miss and some elements that I don't miss. But I will say, Jay, when I see those pictures of Supernationals and when I hear stories about the kids, their first time on an airplane, not necessarily your students, but just generally making this big trip, and there's the opportunity for this trip to have an indelible impression as someone who played at nationals, in my formative years. That's certainly how I felt. Like I always do get a little nostalgic seeing the pictures and just seeing how scholastic chess continues to thrive.
Yeah, it's really great, and I would have loved to have seen you there, but yeah, you're running a different world now with your podcast. It's really amazing, and hopefully they'll get you back to one of those events like they had you in 2017.
Yeah, I'd certainly love to go back at some point. And my kids are a little bit older. It's not traveling is not as infeasible as it once was. Basically, they're packing my bags for me now at this stage, kicking me out the door. So you mentioned these triple check cards, and the reason we chuckled a minute ago for those listening on audio is because I had them ready. I was holding them up. Jay had sent me these. So basically they're an instructional tool for specifically for kids. But Jay, I'll let you explain the genesis of this fun new teaching tool.
Yeah, I was actually looking for a gift for my granddaughter, and we have one, and she's going to be 4 soon,
Awesome.
and so I was looking through a store, and I was reminded of this idea that you can have cards where you get to pick a card and pick an answer out of the choices using a selector stick or button or peg, and then it releases the card if you got the right answer. And so I thought, oh, that would work for chess. And then, yeah, I can see you holding it up now in the YouTube audience. But I thought that would work for chess. And so then I started to envision it. It took a long time to figure out how to do the layout. In the end, we had to go to a printer that could figure out how to print and then die cut all these cards. And the
Wow.
cards are, imagine a deck of cards. They're 4 inch by 6.75. So they're big cards and they're in a holder, and you have 3 options. You have a chess position, and then you have 3 choices. So it's all analog. There's no digital, no Wi-Fi, no batteries needed. And then you look at the 3 choices and you figure out which is you think is right. If you put the selector into the right hole in the holder, then the card will come out. You pick wrong, then the card goes nowhere. And then once you pull it out, then down below it gives you an explanation of why your answer was right, or what the name of the pattern is, or why the other answers were wrong, whatever I deem to be the best information to give you, and just a quick sentence down below. It might give you a little bit of a variation depending on the level of the card. And so I envisioned this and thought, hey, we could have different decks. And that's what we've done. It's worked out really nicely. I started out with fundamental checkmate and tactics, mate on one side of the cards and tactics on the other. And then we did defense and draws, which is defend against the checkmate, even if you have to sacrifice something. What's the best way to get out of check? Dealing with 2 pieces under attack at one time, those kinds of things. And then draws, finding a draw in a desperate situation. A lot of times, obviously, players that are newer to the game, that they struggle with that. And then the last one that I have out right now is essential end games. And the essential end games I really love because that one really is patterns. And with all of these, you can do them over and over again as you prepare for a tournament or in between rounds, and you can take them out. If you haven't played in a tournament for a couple months, you can take out your triple check cards and go through those and feel like you're better prepared, and you will be. And all the different patterns and just making your brain work a little bit. Our next one coming out is opening traps, which is at the designer right now. Peg Arrington is our designer. She did all of our books. And so she's working on the design for the opening traps, and excited that this summer I can announce now. I met with Sunil Weramantry at Supernationals, and we have Hikaru Nakamura's greatest moves.
Oh, fun.
That's coming out this summer. So yeah, and the way it works is you can buy the combo of the 3 plus the holder, or you can buy just the holder itself with one deck. And that's right now the pricing is 25. I find my costs are going up, sneaking up. So I think prices might take a little bit of a jump in June, but right now it's 25 for a holder and a deck. And then each additional deck is just $15, which is great. I saw like just playing cards, like chess playing cards that have opening names on them on one side, and the other side is just the card cover. Those are like $14. So these are 15, and they're double-sided, and they're part of a game. So it's really is. I try to keep it really affordable for everybody, because I'm not looking to be a billionaire. I'm looking to spread the game and hope that a lot of people can enjoy this. And of course, if I can continue to produce decks and decks that people like and enjoy, then I'll do that.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they're very tactile, which of course kids love. And, you know, obviously we're all trying to get our kids off devices, at least certainly at the margins, you know, if nothing else. So it's nice that it fulfills both of those roles. And I'm curious, just so it sounds like with fundamental end games, checkmate patterns, and just like sort of their puzzles, as Jay alluded to, where it's like, you know, you have one way to not get checkmated sort of thing. It's like, so what rating guideline advice would you give for anyone who might be interested, whether for their own
Yeah,
kids or like a
yeah,
niece or
great
nephew?
question, Ben. So the fundamental mate and tactics, I say, is for players aspiring to be 600.
Okay.
So those are very basic. The defense and draws is players from 300 to 1,000. So once again, we're talking mostly scholastic players, but hey, if you are a new adult player, you certainly want to know these patterns and understand these different kinds of draws. And then the essential end games is 500, 1,500. The coaches have been looking at it and saying, you're underestimating. These are tougher than you think. So I have been finding that I thought that they were going to be like up to 1,200, but the coaches are like, no, I'll give this to my 1,500s, and they'll get like, 60% right. So I guess they're pretty challenging. But the coaches seem to really like that. I'm getting some really good reviews from them. So that's been nice. And nice thing about these cards is that they're less intimidating than regular puzzle solving, because instead of looking at a chessboard and there's 25, 30 possible moves on the board, you just have 3.
Yeah.
And so that way a new player is looking at it and they only have to consider 3 choices. But it also gets them in the habit of considering 3 choices. Whereas a lot of times people, they grab that first one. Now they're going to look at the other ones as well, and hopefully build that habit of candidate moves and thinking about candidate moves. So they're not as intimidating as regular puzzle solving. They're going to build patterns. You can use them over and over again. They're not consumables like a book. And then they have explanations, which a lot of times you don't get on the online puzzles. They explain the concept, they name the pattern for you, tell you why the other moves are wrong that might have been a move that you were considering. So they've worked out really well, and they sold like hotcakes at Nationals. They had asked me to bring 30. I brought some extras, and they ended up selling out 90 decks at Supernationals, and the people who are big fans and the coaches were just asking, how many did you bring with you? I want to take them all home with me. And one coach said, can you please not sell it to any other coaches in my city? Because I want to go have an advantage over them. So it was nice and encouraging to see that my colleagues saw the value in triple check and the ideas behind it. So it's been fun, and I'm just working on production now. It's kind of crazy, but it is a lot of steps to get everything done. And even the holder right now, we're 3D printing. My wife's friend Melissa, she did the design, and she's doing all the 3D printing. So it's like this small family operation where we're printing a lot and and having a little bit of stock problems, but that's okay. Order now, and we'll probably be able to get it out to you.
Excellent. And you order through your website, right? Through the Coach
Yeah,
K website.
yeah, CoachJay'sChessAcademy.com is where they would order that.
And are your workbooks still available?
They are, and yeah, it was fun the other day. I got an order where somebody ordered a set of the books. They ordered the upgrade set, the orange through black belt, and then they also ordered the triple check combo, and then they also ordered my chess passports, which are these little passports that they put stickers in, and there's 140 different stickers, everything from progress in your books to learning how to checkmate with the king and a queen, you earn a sticker. Go to nationals, you earn a sticker. Show good sportsmanship, there's a sticker. So there's a ton of different stickers in different categories as far as their books and curriculum development, their skills, their accomplishments, first tournament, played 10 games, won my first game, learned how the pieces move, and then onward all the way up to the Scout Merit Badge. So for chess, so a lot of different stickers that are in there, and that the kids
Uh,
are always very eager to earn. And my schools, we use the stickers as currency, and at the end of the semester, however many stickers they have, that's what they use to buy the little tchotchkes, pawn
right.
keychains and chess sets and that kind of stuff.
Right. Which, by the way, I was thinking like stuff like triple check, like often scholastic teachers are looking for prizes to give, whether it be based on a tournament or just rewarding good behavior or whatever it might be. And like this can definitely be in the rotation along with the pawn keychains and the, squishy knights and everything, everything else that chess teachers sometimes use as prizes.
Yeah, it's a great gift, actually, the triple check, because it does it, it's not online, it's actually physical, and it's not a book. So when a kid gets a book, they're like, and giving them online, it's not something, but to give them this, that's going to help their education. It's a great gift, and it's also great for like a chess class or a camp, especially that kids at camp, you can just hand them a couple kids a triple check and say, hey, take turns with this, and send them off, and knowing that they're going to be better players when they come back.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Jay is a longtime Patreon sub of Perpetual Chess. Thank you for the support, Jay.
But I actually got your email that said that you were interviewing me and also Adam Weissbarth. And can I ask a question to Adam? So my question to Adam, he and I had lunch at Supernationals on the Thursday before it started, and he said that he didn't feel like the people that worked at US Chess knew who he was, even though his organization brings in a ton of memberships for US Chess. And then he had a team room there. So my question is, do they know him now? Did anybody stop by to say hi, and pop in the team room? Because we used to always do that when I was on the Scholastic Councils. I'd walk the executive director around to the different team rooms and say thanks for coming, that kind of thing. So I was curious if he got to connect with US Chess.
Yeah, I'll ask him because Silver Knights is massive, so it would definitely
They are.
be a good PR to pop in and say hi and make sure things are going okay. And probably my last question, Jay. So obviously you've been at this for 30 years, but tools evolve, our thinking evolves. Can you think of anything like, for example, I remember I learned to do when I was doing a lot more, especially in the Zoom age, it was golden. I learned to do Kahoots based around chess, which are sort of like gamified little chess quizzes. And I think you even shared a few with me. So that was something I picked up from you. But I'm curious if you've sort of had any new revelations, whether they be about just chess improvement generally or learning tools that you're incorporating more in the past few years.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely using Lee Chess and using the Lee Chess studies quite a bit. So I'll create a database in Fritz or ChessBase, and I put it there, I guess, because I am old school, and so it's actually on my hard drive, and then I'll upload those for my students onto Lee Chess, and I usually will put a prompt move, so just like chess.com, so but you actually have to hit the arrow key. So in other words, as they go through the puzzles, then they have to hit the right arrow key to see what move black played. For example, if you're usually set up as white, and then they can just make their move. But if I share it with them and make them a contributor, then that's a way for them to solve puzzles there. And then I can go in and look and see how they did. Plus, also, I'll create positions where they should play it out against the bot. And I teach them how to do that. There's the position, and then they go to board setup from that position. And then using the board setup, then they say play it out from here and play it against a bot, and then they can play it out, and it goes into their instead of into their puzzle database, it goes into their game database. And so I can look and see if they know how to win a game when they have 6 pawns against only 2 pawns against the bot, and give them advice that way. So chess is something that I've definitely used. And then all of the different tournaments on chess.com and on Chess, having the team tournaments. We've done the team competitions on chess.com, and I've done arena tournaments where you just play everybody, and as soon as your game's done, you play another game on Chess. And I usually take off the special bonus features, like when you win 3
Right.
in a row, you get
Extra
extra
points.
points,
Yeah.
or you can berserk and get double points. But so I take off those options and go from there. But so yeah, I definitely encourage everybody who's a coach to take a little time to look at all the technological advances, and find out what works for them. It's worth that half a day that you would spend learning those, and write yourself some notes, because we don't remember everything, and then be able to go back and use them, and your students will certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much made so easy by sites like Chess. We're definitely living in a good time to be a chess teacher. Well, Jay, always great to chat. It's been too long. Do you have any closing words, or should we just say our goodbyes?
Well, I did want to just mention that I am going to be teaching at the University of the Pacific a chess strategy and tactics class. It's at their Summer High School Institute, which has high schoolers. If you're entering 9th through 12th grade, then you stay overnight, and you're there for 9 days of instruction plus a weekend, so 11 days total. And you stay in the dorms, you eat the dorm food, but I'm teaching chess for 7 hours a day, 9 days, 63 hours of chess.
Oh,
And these kids are going to get a lot better. But this year we've added a new component besides just the content of chess, teaching them how to be a coach so that they can work as an assistant chess coach at a school, or an academy, working for somebody to help pay for college, and then also as a tournament director. And that's good not just for their income, but also for their college applications. It's one thing to be a chess player on your college application, but if you are a chess tournament director and a chess coach, then that looks really good. They're seeing that you are an authority, and that you can take charge, and you can be a leader. So we're working with the kids to train them on those activities as well. And so that's at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, coming up June 2nd through 12th, which is going to be right about when this airs, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah. It'll have just started when this comes out, if all goes according to plan. But that's awesome. And yeah,
Well,
that's a
great to
lot of
see you.
chess teaching. So we better rest up before then, Jay.
For sure. Yeah, it's great to see you, and good to be back on the Perpetual Chess podcast again. I still wear my T-shirt when I go to the gym. I'm promoting your podcast on a regular basis.
Excellent. And then you got to keep the ladies at bay when you're wearing the Perpetual Chess Podcast T-shirt.
It's
Swat them
tough.
away.
Yeah,
What's
it's
that?
tough. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks as always, Jay.
Good to see you, Ben. Have a good
Okay.
one.
And we are here with another return guest. He is a national master and the founder and CEO of Silver Knights Chess Academy, which was originally founded in 2006. It's one of the largest after school chess programs in the United States, in something like 350 schools with 6,000 students just this year. It's based around Washington, D.C. When people reach out to me asking for advice about getting into chess teaching, there's a few episodes that I recommend. Number one is with Jay Stallings, who you guys will have already heard on the podcast. Our current guest, Adam Weissbarth, also is. Our prior interview is like a great intro into how to get into the business of chess teaching and how to build a business from the ground up. And then we'll get kind of a middle game story here. And then the other one, of course, is with FM Peter Giannatos, the founder of the Charlotte Chess Center, all friends of the pod. And I am excited to welcome back to the program Adam Weissbarth. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, 8 years it's been. I'm trying not to talk about how long it's been with every guest that comes on. But that's been the pattern lately. So let me ask you, Adam, I think I know the answer to this, but in the time since I last interviewed you, what has been the biggest challenge that Silver Knights has faced?
Well, I mean, I guess it would have to be the pandemic in 2020. It was probably that's an easy answer.
Yeah, I figured as much. By the way, I meant to mention in the intro, longtime chess fans may be aware that Silver Knights also has a unique history where it was one of the largest independent chess teaching entities. They also teach coding, by the way, in the United States. And then it was acquired by the Play Magnus Group, which was this large company that eventually acquired Chess24 and Chessable and also Silver Knights. And then it became the Magnus Academy and was ultimately reacquired as part of the chess.com Chess24 merger. And then in the recent year, it was spun off and is now independent again in the Washington, D.C. area where it's based. But I knew that wasn't going to be as big a challenge as the pandemic, because you guys were a predominantly, or 100%, I believe, IRL business. And then what happened, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, wow, you kind of made that sound pretty like smooth and simple, but there was a lot to it. Yeah, so we were teaching, like you said, in about 300 schools, not just chess, but also coding and robotics. And basically the pandemic hits and all of the schools close. And, it happened at like midnight on a Thursday. The superintendent of our largest school district, finally, he'd been sending all these emails out, like kind of defiantly saying, hey, I know other parts of the country are closing schools. We're not going to do that. And then finally he did. And so Friday morning, we're kind of shell shocked. I told everybody to stay home. At that time, we had about 230 instructors and 15 or 20 full-time staff that did all the admin work. And I just said, everybody, like, just stay home Friday. Like, there's no emergencies. All the schools are closed. Don't even bother with your email. There's nothing to do. Like, we'll just take the weekend and assess the situation and let's talk on Monday. And basically that Saturday, I went for a long walk with Daniel, who's my brother and also business partner, to try and figure out like what we should do. Because with every school closed, we didn't have any revenue anymore. I mean, just literally not anything coming in at all. So, hundreds of employees to pay, an office to pay rent on, insurance, software, all of this, and no money coming in at all. And Daniel and I usually really see eye to eye about major decisions. And in this case, we did not. There were two things that we were just not on the same page with, and we really lucked out in a way, because on this walk, it was like 5 hours. I kind of lost track of time to the point where, I was like, didn't even realize we'd been walking and talking for so long. And it was like, before I realized that I had all these blisters on my feet and like just from walking so many miles. And we fortunately were able to resolve our disagreements in a way, like, it was funny because in one of them, he kind of talked me around to his way of thinking. And in the other one, I talked him around to my way. And I think we ended up in hindsight kind of stumbling into the right answer in both. And had we not, the business probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, obviously a lot of businesses were affected, but yours kind of in a unique way. Now, one thing I'm curious about, Adam, is when I was doing after school programs, I mean, parents generally would pay upfront by semester. I'm guessing it's similar for you guys. And if I recall right, this would be around March or April where this happened. So did you have like a set, like that school year already paid for, or not even?
Like half and half. It's generally the parents pay up front, but they may not pay us. They may pay some intermediary, either at the school or an outside like registration software platform or something. So really, like in about half of the cases, we get paid at the start of a session. In about half of the cases, we don't get paid till the end. Mm-hmm. So even just the accounting of it was extremely messy. So we had some money in the bank, but like it wasn't going to last for that long.
Yeah, wow. And for listeners, we discussed in our first interview, they are a for-profit company. Some of the proprietors I've interviewed are nonprofit, but Silver Knights is a for-profit, but not enough squirreled away. Obviously 15 to 20 full-time employees, as well as all the hundreds of teachers, which just boggles my mind that you have some 200 teachers working for you, many of them in a part-time capacity, but nonetheless. So yeah, you can't just pay people in perpetuity. You guys came to an agreement, you and Daniel, your brother, and the chief operating officer. And what did you decide to do as the next week rolls around?
Yeah, so the first thing that we were kind of had to work through was Daniel really wanted to try to teach chess to kids online, which it sounds very obvious to say today. But at the time, I was like, that's just a stupid idea. Nobody's going to pay for that. And I think at that time, the dominant like idea or culture was parents didn't want their kids doing anything online there were privacy concerns and things like that. And I just didn't think anybody would pay for it. But he kind of talked me into it by saying, like, look, what else are we going to do? Like, we can't do anything else right now. We might as well try. And so to his credit, like, he was the one that really figured that out. And that ended up working really well and becoming what we now call our academy program, where we teach a lot of kids in that way. The other thing that we disagreed about was basically how deep to cut with our costs for the business, where Daniel was kind of thinking something more like a middle ground. We cut some things, lay off some people, but keep other things around so we're ready to kind of put the company back together as quickly as possible. And I kind of felt like with the way schools were shutting down, it was like, well, what's going to be different in a month? Like nothing. So we just can't keep paying for things for month after month after month after month after month. We're just going to run out of money pretty soon. And I talked him around to that. And so basically the following Monday after the schools closed, Daniel wrote a very heartfelt email to our coaches basically saying, I'm so sorry, but we have to lay you all off. You didn't do anything wrong. And it's like the worst message I've ever had to send to anyone, but this is the reality. Without schools, we don't have programs to run. And then I ran a meeting for our full-time staff, kind of my first ever, Zoom or Google Meet. I don't even remember which one we used, basically telling them the same thing, that, most of them were going to lose their jobs. And it was kind of the hardest thing I'd ever had to say to anyone, and that we would follow up with each of them as soon as the call ended, like one-on-one. And either Daniel or I would talk to each person and basically say if they still had a job or not. And we did that. And I guess I'm not too ashamed to say that's probably the most I've ever cried in a day as an adult, was that day, because it was just so painful. But we went down from 250 employees that day to 3, in addition to Daniel and I. We just kept one person who was like our payroll person to just get everybody paid the right amounts, the severance that we were giving out, all of that, and to help people get unemployment, because there was a lot of that. We kept one person to help me kind of clean up basically our office and sell off all of our stuff, and one person to help Daniel set up the new online teaching thing. And that was it.
Man, that is a rough, long weekend. Now,
Yeah.
what did you do with the office? Did you have a lease?
We did. We had a lease that went for multiple more years. It was like over $10,000 a month at that time. So, that was going to, put us out of business by itself if we didn't find a way out. So I was able to basically negotiate our way out of the lease within a few months. And we sold off all this furniture, all of these kind of coding and robotics supplies that we had, accumulated that we weren't going to be able to use them because schools were closed for the foreseeable future. So we kind of moved out of it, and it was just this long, messy process. But, we were able to get some cash in the door by selling hundreds of robotics kits and laptops and things like that.
I'm surprised people wanted to buy them at that particular moment.
Well, yeah. So what actually we lucked out, because a lot of people were starting to do this like Zoom school for their kids. So they wanted like basically little laptops their kids could use.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of what it was.
Man, that is intense. And it's funny to hear you say, obviously I lived through it there with you, was doing a bit of teaching when it happened. So dealt with it on an individual scale. But to hear you talk about like how inconceivable the idea of online classes was 5 years ago. Now they're so ubiquitous so quickly, and no one knew what Zoom was. Like things just changed. Now it's like a verb. Like it's just crazy how quickly things change. And now, as you say, it's a permanent part of your business. Now, so what happens, Adam? Obviously, that's the hardest part. That's unfathomably hard. But then, as schools reopen, like, what happened just overnights from there? Are you now fully recovered? It's been years, obviously.
Yeah, now we're more than fully recovered, I would say. It kind of started a bit slow and messy because I guess everything was closed in person where we are for our purposes for about 15 months. And so it was like summer of 2021, a year later, when the first in-person opportunities to teach came back, which for us was summer camps that summer, followed by some clubs and schools in the fall. It all came back very small. There were a lot of rules. There were a lot of low maximums, sites that were previously, we would have huge programs, both summer camps and after school. It would be like, okay, you can teach 10 kids. That's it. It was also very challenging to get coaches to come back. Like they didn't want to come back in some cases. A lot of them had just moved on. And understandably so. People were like, they would say one week, okay, I'm going to go coach. And then the next week, they're like, I don't want to coach. There's like, I don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
So just managing that was very messy. But over the next few years, everything normalized. And there was also, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, there was an enormous chess boom, 2020, 2021, up really kind of, and 2023 too. And I think that has increased interest in chess. And so at this point, our programs have more than recovered. We're in more schools than we were before, and have a higher chess enrollment than we ever did before. But it was very messy at first.
Yeah, I bet. And when we did our interview in 2018, you guys estimated that you were 2/3 chess, 1/3 coding, and now you've got robotics thrown in there too. What's the current breakdown?
It's 100% chess now.
Oh,
so
really? I didn't know that. Okay.
It
you
is.
didn't buy the equipment back.
Yeah, right. No, we didn't get it back, right? But I don't know. We just obviously during the pandemic, there was an opportunity for some soul searching. And I just decided when the business comes back, the in-person part of it, I kind of want to just do chess. And it was a weird thing because it was so difficult and complicated to basically reconstitute the business from nothing almost. But it did give us an opportunity to kind of build it back up the way that maybe it should have been built the whole time. And I think that was a change that we decided to make, was to just not bring back the coding and robotics classes, and to just say we're going to be the chess guys. And that's the thing we love the most. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Were there any other big changes that you made in reimagining the organization?
I think the other one was really what happened to those online classes that Daniel set up with a couple coaches that he was able to rehire in 2020, which is, I had mentioned one of the 3 employees we kept was one of our coaches who helped Daniel kind of set up and envision what the online classes were. And there was one day, during the heart of the pandemic, when Luke, the employee, and Daniel were just over at my backyard, and the 3 of us were talking, and Luke's got kids that are a little older, maybe middle school or high school. And he was just saying the online classes are actually kind of amazing in certain ways, because the kids that are good can actually be around other kids that are good, which you normally can't do that in school clubs, because there's normally not a group of kids that are all 1,000 players at the same school or something. Right. And he was kind of saying with soccer, kids play rec soccer. And then if they get too good for that, they play travel soccer. And there's just this understood pathway towards it. And that exists in gymnastics and other sports. Why can't the online teaching just stick around when schools reopen, but become the travel soccer, where kids can kind of train and learn with other kids that are like them if they've outgrown the school clubs? So that has stuck around, and that's become a big part of what we're doing. And I would say that's the biggest change.
Yeah, now you've got Grandmaster Johan Hellsten, who has been on the pod and, revered coach, does fantastic work, and Grandmaster Lazaro Bruzon. How did that come about? How did you hire them?
Yeah, well, they were not the first people that we hired, certainly, for this. But I think kind of what happened is that we started teaching these online classes, and as schools reopened in 21, 22, and 23, online classes kind of morphed into being something that initially it was just for anyone who wanted to play chess. And then as the school programs reopened, the people that were still doing online were the ones who were non-beginner players, who really kind of wanted to be around other kids and with coaches who were going to get them to the next level. And the school program's not challenging enough. And basically what happened over a couple of years of that is that a lot of those kids started getting really good. And it was getting to the point where we have a lot of kind of our own coaching staff who were 2,000 level players, even 2,200 level players. We don't have a lot of players above 2,200. And we started getting more and more kids that were above 1,400 that had just started from nothing basically. And it's at that point, it's we don't have a lot of people that can teach them. So we ended up starting kind of what we call the Elite Academy, which you have to be rated 1,400 or more over the board to do. And what the commitment we made to the families was that those were going to be grandmaster coaches only. So we have FMs and IMs that teach some of the other more advanced kids, but once you're at 1,400, your coach is a GM. And I think Johan was the first one we hired. And what was cool about him is that a lot of he is very devoted to being a coach. And a lot of players at that level a lot of grandmasters, they look at coaching as this grubby thing that like you do when you're a sellout and you don't want to like compete anymore or something. And I don't think that's true of him. Like, I think he really takes the coaching seriously, and you want someone like that. Like, he's got a class of kids who were like all 21 and 2200 players. Like, as kids, like that's like a special group of kids. You want someone teaching that. It can't just be a grandmaster. It has to be a grandmaster who really takes seriously that responsibility to give that group of kids the best coaching they can get.
Yeah, and this, of course, Johan Hellsten is author of a triumvirate of books, including Mastering Chess Strategy, that is just an amazing resource. And yeah, I've had him do a couple like Patreon Zoom lectures, and I know my friend Greg Shahadi has had him teach for the U.S. Chess School. And yeah, he's an amazing and dedicated teacher. So that is a good choice. So Adam, I know that as we record this, as I mentioned in the intro, you were just at Nationals. Now, when I interviewed you previously, obviously, you have some kids who get pretty into tournament chess, but an organization with the scope of yours, with as many students, the primary emphasis, as you told me then, is, you know, you want kids to be exposed to chess, learn critical thinking, all of the cognitive skills that chess can provide. It's not necessarily to sort of foster national champions. Do you feel like because of this online academy that's changing, or is it just like that's the top layer and the fundamental mission remains the same?
I think we try to do both now. Like, that definitely has been a change. And I think before we started teaching these academy classes online, we didn't really have anything amazing to offer to the kids that got to the non-beginner level, right? It was just like we tried, but it was too hard to gather them in one place. So I think now we do both. Of course, most of the people at the company, the main mission is, you know, getting as many kids as possible excited about chess, learning the basics, having fun, you know, experiencing winning and losing and growing through kind of those, through joining chess clubs. But I think we do also now have a focus through this academy program of, like, for the kids that are really into it and are working hard and talented and just love the game and want to compete hard at it, we want to help them be successful. So I think that's now a focus also.
And how many kids did you have going to this nationals, the Supernationals that just concluded?
Maybe like 70 or 80.
Oh, wow.
So
that's a
yeah,
lot.
it is pretty cool. We got like a team room and had 3 coaches there, and it's really fun seeing the kids. You know, a lot of times it's like kids meeting each other face to face for the first time that have been in the same classes for like years. So there's like a lot of conversations like, oh, you're, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah username. Like, I'm something or other. And it's like, oh, you know, so they know each other's like favorite openings and they've played before, but they've never met. And it was really fun to just see them meet, and the parents get to meet, and, you know, the kids spend the weekend hanging out, and it's kind of this pretty magical experience.
Yeah. I was saying to Jay, and listeners will have heard, I get nostalgic for the Nationals. I do love the excitement that it brings about in the kids, and yeah, they work hard. They deserve it. What's the Silver Knights history with Nationals? Are you guys sending kids every year?
We have not historically emphasized it, I would say, partly because, like you said, we just generally, we focused more on the beginner intermediate segments in school programs, but that may change now. I don't know. Like, it was, I think we've gone to the last couple, and we might continue that. I guess as I'm saying this, I don't know how we don't continue it in some fashion, given how many of the kids are having competitive success, and that we're just getting more and more kids that are into it at that level. Like, I think we have to, and we will.
That's great. And Adam, we have a question from Coach Jay, Patreon sub, who listeners will have heard. Thank you, Jay, for submitting this question in the prior interview. And he's asked, he said, you guys had lunch together at the Nationals, and you mentioned that even though you're sending a lot of kids, I mean, this is 70 to 80 kids out of some 4,000, it's not nothing, you know, and renting a team room, you know, it's a lot of entry fees, et cetera. You hadn't really met many people from the USCF. So Jay was wondering if that changed in the subsequent days at Nationals.
It did. I got to chat a little bit with some of the new people that are, I think, likely to be on the USCF board after this year's elections. So not like super long conversations, but I think I did get to meet them all, and I think that was good.
Okay, good. And you had a good overall experience? I mean, you already mentioned the kids had a great time. You did as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good overall experience. I think the nuts and bolts of Supernationals now is a lot better run than what I remember from playing as a kid. I think when I was in high school, I played in the very first Supernationals that they had. So I'm dating myself a little bit here. I don't know, like the round started on time. Everything is good from that perspective. There are some frustrating elements a little bit as well. Overall, I think definitely it's the people are working hard and it's been improved as an event.
Okay. Glad to hear it. And in terms of overall what you do, we've become friendly over the years. So even though I haven't interviewed you for 8 years, we've had occasional conversations. I know you've done some work because you hire a lot of teachers with varying levels of chess experience. When we chatted previously, you mentioned it's more important to be a good teacher than a good chess player in terms of being an effective chess teacher, something I agree with from my experience as well. And I think we might have even talked about how they might be negatively correlated, the ability to play chess and the ability to teach. So it makes it all the more worthwhile when you find good ones. But what I was wondering, Adam, is like what you've found in terms of curriculums, because often you're teaching brand new kids and you want them to learn chess as effectively as possible. So when you want kids starting from the beginning, are you using your own materials or are there other resources that you rely on?
Yeah, we basically just use our own curriculum. It was something that I wrote like back in the day, almost 20 years ago when I was starting, and it's been revised a number of times over the years. But I think there's a lot of good things out there, but our format is just very specific. And a lot of curriculum that you can just find if you Google around is just for, okay, you're a teacher in a school and you don't play chess, but you want to teach your kids to play chess in your classroom. Like that's different than what we're doing. And so we just kind of have our own thing. And I think the benefit of this is like there's no predetermined list of things that, the kids have to learn to pass a test or something. Like we're just trying to teach them, they got to learn how to play a game and then just some basic strategy so they can start getting checkmates and winning. And that's really it. It's like whatever they can learn that they think is cool that inspires them to want to play more is my goal.
And if you succeed in that and like the kids start showing up in tournaments, what do you do to bring them along? Are you using Chess Kid? Are you recommending certain books? Like once they're they know what checkmate is and they want more, then how do you guide them?
That is, I think, a super hard question. I mean, the real way we guide those kids who want to be playing in tournaments and want more is they join the online academy lessons and they learn kind of how other kids like them think. Like one of the features of the software we use for that is this quiz feature in Chessable Classroom, which you may be familiar with, where the coach asks a question and then all 6 of the students, they click their own move they want to play. And then the coach kind of goes through everything rapid fire. And so it's like a kid can learn not only whether their move was right or wrong and why, but what were all the other kids that are kind of like them thinking and how are they thinking about chess? So it's kind of a nice rapid fire way to learn. I don't know, as far as like books or other things, I think you and I have even talked about this a little bit. Like it's hard to find good books for kids that are not total beginners.
Yeah, it is.
And I think maybe Daniel, my brother, should write one someday. I think that's hard. We do, we encourage kids to play on Chess Kid. I think it's good to have a website where people can go that's basically safe for kids to play. And so I think that's helpful. So we certainly encourage that. And we even, give kids that want it free memberships if they're in our program.
Excellent. And obviously, I'm guessing you guys do a lot of summer camps as well.
Yeah, we do. We do in-person summer camps all over our kind of mid-Atlantic part of the country. And we also do online summer camps for kids that want like a half day of chess every day.
And I'm guessing you get this question fairly frequently. We probably talked about it previously as well. When people say they want to get into chess teaching, A or B, maybe even do something like you've done and like build a business around chess, what advice do you give? What were the hardest lessons to learn that you're able to try to impart to people to save them from what you've been through?
Yeah, well, I think there are 2 main transition points which are challenging if you're trying to grow a chess teaching business. So one is when you go from teaching yourself in schools to having one or more people that coach with you. That's a big transition when you're not the only one doing all of the coaching. The next big transition, which is maybe more than what you're actually asking, is when you have enough coaches that you hire someone to help you with admin work and you're not only the only admin person. But I think those are the 2 transition points that people struggle with. I mean, normally somebody who has the inclination to try to do this for a living or to start a business, they're going to be an effective teacher themselves. Like they wouldn't be interested in doing it otherwise. But I think it's very hard for a lot of people to make the transition from like, hey, I'm teaching I got my 5 schools that I coach at. I got a Monday school, a Tuesday school, a Wednesday school, and so on after school, to like, okay, now I have a 6th school and I don't have room for it on my schedule. I'm going to hire someone to help me. And, or maybe a 7th, 8th, 9th, and 15th, 20th school, right? You can keep taking it out as far as you want. But it's very hard because with most jobs, any job, the expectation is that you hire a new person to do a job and they need a lot of training and support to do it right. You know, you wouldn't hire a high school math teacher and then not give them any training and expect them to go into a room full of 15-year-olds and teach them math, right? You wouldn't hire someone to flip burgers at McDonald's without giving them the McDonald's training on like how you do that. And any job is like that. But I think something about chess in particular makes us all resistant to this idea. And I think where I've seen some people struggle is they hire someone to go do some teaching, but they don't think to themselves like, okay, I got to give this person a lot of training and support. And that might even mean I'm changing what I'm doing. Because if I'm teaching 5 days a week after school and I hire this other person to teach, you know, on Wednesdays, well, I'm already teaching on Wednesdays. So I'm just going to go do my thing. And this new guy will go teach on Wednesdays and I'll earn some extra money. It doesn't really work like that because you never see them teach. So I think you have to be willing to change what you're doing, maybe step back from coaching in order to give people support, which can be hard because it means you make less money. The kids you used to be teaching on that day are grumpy because you're sending someone else that's not you. And that's a bummer for those kids in the school. But if you want to build an organization, you have to get past it. It can't be dependent on you coaching. So you have to get as excited about supporting and training people you hire as you initially were excited about doing the coaching yourself.
That's great advice. Yeah, and I've been at that exact point a couple times because I ran my own organization in Pittsburgh and then we moved and I started over in New Jersey when my family moved here. And I'll have another question, but I did just want to highlight the point that it's a good idea that you could just cut back one school and that gives you one day to observe someone. So you don't have to like give up everything, but at least if you take that one day and are able to go give feedback to the person, that at least sets you on a path. But the other question I was going to ask is, and this is what boggles my mind about what Silver Knights has done, is I found it hard to find one person to hire, and you guys have found hundreds. So what's the secret to finding good chess teachers that are only, it's not a full-time job in most cases. So right. How do you find people?
No, you're right. It's definitely not a full-time job. Like we actually experimented with that a little bit early on and it ended up not working out. We couldn't give people enough hours. So what I did, it's changed over the years because really overall, like economy-wide, the way that people find jobs has changed. I think in the almost 20 years I've been doing this, like initially what I would do is you used to be able to buy like mailing lists from the USCF. So we'd buy an email blast and a bulk mail from them, and we would send people that were rated chess players in the certain zip codes an email and a letter that was like, hey, you want to teach kids chess? And so we would get a handful of people that way. And that worked for a little while. It's hard to scale that because like it's hard to fill everything that you need with like rated chess players who have current info with USCF, so they actually receive your stuff. The other problem with that method now is that the USCF at some point stopped basically letting people get mailing lists, and they also kind of shut down their own email list where it's an opt-in thing, so it's only maybe 3 or 4% of what it used to be in terms of the reach. So very few people get those emails. So now it really has evolved a lot over the years, and we have a team of 4 full-time people in our HR department, and one of their main areas of focus is on recruiting and hiring and training staff. So we're kind of doing it every day, at least for part of the year, but just the same way you would hire for any other job. Again, you know, you're hiring school teachers, you know, food service workers, and just any kind of job. If you've got to hire a lot of people, you know, you just kind of set it up and go do it, but it's not anything specific to chess.
Okay. Wow. And then you train them in chess as well as chess teaching.
We do. I mean, more of them now, I would say, play chess. I mean, I can probably thank Gotham for that or something, but there's a lot of like, a lot more, you know, it used to be that we would interview a bunch of people and it's like half of them really kind of don't know how to play at all. And we got to kind of decide, is this person enough of an all-star that we want to invest in them to train them the basics of chess so they can teach 6-year-old beginners. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now I would say it's much more common that most people at least know the basics because they have gotten into it from the Queen's Gambit show or, watching Gotham videos or whatever. And they'll say they're not any good, but then it's like, oh yeah, I'm a 900 on chess.com rapid. Actually, like if you go back in time 6 years, that's not bad, right?
Yeah,
like that's someone who's absolutely very well qualified from a chess perspective to teach beginner elementary schoolers, which is our biggest need.
Yeah. Good advice there, Adam. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was this whole thing you've been through with being acquired by Play Magnus and then being a part of chess.com and now being independent. What were the biggest adjustments along the way, both for being part of these big corporations and now not again?
Yeah, well, definitely it was weird because it all happened kind of at the same time as all the COVID stuff happened. Like we joined Play Magnus in the middle of 2021. So right as schools and summer camp programs were reopening from the pandemic. So all of these changes kind of crashed into each other. And there were definitely some 80 hour weeks in there in terms of the workload. But I think it was kind of this big adventure, and I feel like I just learned a ton. I really liked, I guess, being exposed to all different kinds of chess businesses and meeting people that had started them and they had evolved, so like Chessable, Chess24, Chess.com, ChessKid, like all of these really cool companies, learning all about them, I think was a great experience. I mean, I know a lot about chess content creation. As you know, I knew nothing about that 7 or 8 years ago. And it's a very interesting area. It's not my area, but I find it very interesting. So I thought it was really cool. And I met a lot of interesting people and learned a lot.
But enjoying being independent again as well, I'm guessing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, it's a little bit, in a way we're fortunate because the management never changed. It was always like, I think for the employees and the customers, not much actually changed day to day because Daniel and I were, the vision was always that we would continue running it, but there would be kind of direction and resources originally from the Magnus group. But it was always we're always the ones that have been kind of running the day-to-day of everything. So I think for most of our people, it wasn't really a change. But yeah, I mean, of course, if it's nice to just be independent again and we're kind of doing our thing.
Yeah.
And enjoying that.
And you did get Magnus to go to preside at one online class, right?
He came to several, actually. You never know with someone of like that stature in the chess world, like, what they're going to be like when they're with kids. But he was like great with the kids. Like he really like related to them on their level. And, these silly questions, a little kid, she like do this question and answer period. And a little kid, she asked him, have you ever cried when you lost a chess game? Like, obviously I think she has probably cried and she's wanting to know, like, is this okay? And he had like this great answer about like, yeah, that's just kind of normal. And you just got to let out some tears and then you go try and get them next time. And he
Against
just did
Hans
a great
Niemann,
job.
he probably cried.
I don't have any comment about that, but this was before all of that.
Okay.
But he was great. And we've had other people. We've had Anish Giri on a few times, Judith Polgar on a few times. Like they're both like amazing.
Yeah.
Guest instructors.
And can you still pull guests like that now that you're Silver Knights again?
Yeah, we just had Anish and I think we have Judith scheduled soon.
That's awesome.
For later this year. So no more Magnus specifically, but everybody else that we used to have, yeah, they're still in the rotation. And I think it's very like inspirational for kids who are talented players to get to meet these people and ask them questions and just relate to them as human beings.
Yeah. And the beauty of Zoom that like, you can make it happen. I mean, it's not flying someone in and putting them up would probably be cost prohibitive, but you can pay them a nice hourly rate to hop on a Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, Adam, it's been good to catch up on all things chess business. Any closing thoughts or advice you would want to impart to listeners?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you kind of covered everything. I don't know. You want to have like a sad Philadelphia 76ers conversation now that we're at the very end of the pod and the chess content has been exhausted.
We'll keep that offline, but it is a predominant topic of our conversation is Adam and I are both increasingly suffering Sixers fans. But hey, got the number 3 pick, so there's hope maybe. All right, well, Adam, we'll do this again sometime. Great to great to see your continued growth. I know there's a lot to learn from what you've built, and I know that we've got a lot of chess teachers listening. If anyone has any questions or wants to move to DC and work for Silver Knights, what is their next step?
Just go to chessacademy.com and fill out a contact form and, reach out to us.
Okay, sounds good. I will link to that. Thank you, as always, Adam.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Okay, bye.